Hello and welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome. Today I'm going to be answering some of the internet's most asked interior design questions, and I was going to do it for like 2025, but I feel like these questions are ones that just come up no matter what year it is. I mean, like, these are things that people always want help with, and it's definitely, there's a lot of commonality between the questions that people ask me as an interior designer and then obviously what you guys are putting out onto Google, searching for on Google. So that is what the video is going to be today. So hopefully some of these questions and answers resonate with you, or maybe you are stuck in a bit of an interior design funk and need a little bit of advice. And so that is what we're going to be looking at today. So let's get into it. First question is, how can I make a small room in my home feel bigger? And honestly, I put this one first because this is definitely one of the most asked questions that I also get as an interior designer. I think when we're faced with a small room or a small space, it can be really overwhelming because it kind of limits your options. But I want to say, don't fret. It's actually a really good thing to have limitations in interior design. It helps us to make choices more effectively. If you have a small space and you want to make it bigger, here are some things that you can do to achieve that. So the first thing I want to say is to try to maximize the light in any space that maybe feels small or a little bit cramped. It might feel small because it's physically small, the ceilings might be low, it might be dark, and instantly by adding light to the space, whether that is optimizing, the natural light that you get through windows, or if it's like a south-facing room, maybe you want to include more lighting like wall sconces, table lamps, floor lamps, anything to sort of get that light level up is instantly going to make the space feel a lot bigger. If you don't have the luxury of a lot of natural light, another thing that I would encourage you to do is to opt for kind of lighter tone paint colors on the wall. So obviously white is, the go-to. It will reflect a lot of that light around the room, but you want to have a space that actually has color in it. I would opt for lighter colored paint colors. So like, it can still be any color, but a lighter version, a lighter tone of that color to really help maximize the light in the space. Next tip is to opt for like multifunctional modular furniture, which I spoke about in one of my recent videos, and about how effective that can be to maximize a small space, to make it feel bigger by not having to have just one piece of furniture for every single function. You might have nested side tables that can also be used as stools. You'll have potentially like a fold-out couch or modular couch that you can move pieces around to act as sort of a couch, as armchairs, as ottomans. And this really is just going to, one, save you money, and two, make the most out of your space. You're not going to have tons and tons of furniture that's taking up the space, making it feel more cramped and cluttered than it really needs to be. Speaking of clutter, I want to say this is probably, I know people struggle with this, but this is honestly the best thing you can do to make a small space feel bigger, is to avoid clutter. Like, make sure you have really good storage systems in place so that you can conceal and hide the things that you don't want on display. Physically, having a lot of stuff in a small room makes it instantly feel cluttered. We know that, but visually it's just really difficult to be in a space and feel calm and relaxed and make it feel bigger if you have visual clutter everywhere. So really try to integrate some concealed storage systems if you can, whether that's just cupboards, whether it's baskets, just to sort of organize things and prevent them from being on display to take up more room than they need to in the space. And then the last few things that I want to say to make a small room feel bigger is use mirrors and reflective surfaces. This will instantly make such a big difference to your space. Hanging a mirror to reflect a view that sort of reflects the window, if there is a window in the space, will really make the room feel so much bigger. It creates the illusion of space, it reflects light, and that goes for any sort of reflective material. So all these little things that if you implement them, they will make a really big difference in making a small room feel a lot bigger. Next question. What are some budget-friendly and affordable ways to upgrade a space without breaking the bank? Again, a very common question, and I think everyone can relate to this. It is not cheap to upgrade a space, especially if you have expensive taste and you want it to, feel completely luxe and chic and whatever, but you can still create this outcome on a budget, 100%. As I said, if you have limitations on your space or your budget, it can help you to get really resourceful and to make creative and kind of smart choices, especially if you're wanting to upgrade a room when you don't have that much cash to spend. So some really simple things that you can do is obviously give the room a lick of paint. This will instantly give it a refresh refresh and just create a really good foundation and canvas to build on. If you have old wallpaper, or even if your walls just need a good clean, just cleaning them and kind of bringing them back to life is a very easy way to make a big difference in your space. Sometimes you think your walls are clean and then you get some sugar soap on them and you realize that they look so much better after a bit of a scrub. So I'd really encourage you, if you can't paint, to maybe think about doing that just to give it a freshness and a sense of new life. If you're able to, I would swap out hardware on cabinets and joinery and things. And this is obviously something that is not new information. Everyone on YouTube talks about this, but only because it really is quite a cost-effective and impactful way to make change in your space, especially if you don't have that much money to spend. You can definitely find some unique handles and knobs on Etsy that would probably pertain to any taste. But even if you just go to your local hardware store, find something that you can use to really upgrade the space in a cost-effective way. A lot of us have experienced the boob lights that you can get in rental apartments, and if you're able to even just get an air tasker to come in and swap out the light fitting for something more interesting, like an interesting pendant, and you can swap it back if you're renting when you move out. But updating your light fixtures, again, is a way to be creative and have things in the space that you really like. And light fixtures don't have to be expensive. Something that maybe is expensive, for example, that you draw inspiration from, and then maybe try and find a cheaper alternative or something that has a similar sort of feel to it. It's a really great way to get your creativity going. It's matching your aesthetic, but it's, again, not breaking the bank. And I hate that saying, breaking the bank, but it's true. You're able to do it on a budget. Make the most of Facebook Marketplace. Getting on Facebook Marketplace on the regular, whether that's daily or every few days, is honestly going to be the best thing that you can do. The amount of stuff I have bought on Facebook Marketplace for really affordable prices, but they're pieces that I love, and it's so great having pieces in your home that match your aesthetic, because they're also budget friendly and are going to help you to create the space that you want without having to go out and spend a whole slap of cash. And then the last thing I want to say on this note is to upgrade your space by swapping out furniture that you've already got in your home, or homewares and things. Move things around into different rooms and see how it makes the space feel. You don't always have to go out and spend money and buy things to upgrade your space, but you can just work with what you've got, or again, find really cheap things on Facebook Marketplace, local markets, Vinnies, Salvos, thrift stores and things. There's nothing wrong with having secondhand pieces in your home. If anything, I think you are doing everyone a favor. You are buying pieces that are supporting sustainability, but they've also got a story behind them, and they've been worn in and used, and sometimes that's really beautiful. Not everything has to be new and bright and shiny. It's really great when things have a story, and personally, I lean to those things more than new things. Next question. What are the good and key elements of interior design? Okay, this one is going to be a little bit subjective, so it's just going to be my opinion. You can disagree with me. You definitely don't have to follow what I'm saying, but in my mind, and I'm sure there will be some of you that agree with this, but the key elements of a good interior design is to balance functionality and aesthetic and to layer your space. So always start from a place of functionality. If you're looking to redo a space, reconfigure, start from scratch, always look at it as, okay, how do I want this space to function? How do I want to live in this space? What do I want its main purpose to be? So think about your life and what you actually do on a daily basis, as opposed to what you think you want the overall space to feel like. Do you sit at the dining table for breakfast, or do you sit on the couch? Do you sit in the kitchen? Think about those little nuanced moments throughout your day and how that's going to affect the overall layout of a space. Once you've done that and you've kind of got an idea of how you want the space to function, then you can start to bring in the creative aesthetic side of it, where you're really bringing this functionality to life through your creative approach, through your lens, basically. So start picking pieces that really reflect what you want your space to feel like. If you want it to feel calm, colorful, collective, minimal, curated, pick some adjectives and descriptive words that are really going to anchor your decision-making process. And then once you've done that, it's about layering. So it's about layering, new pieces with old pieces, with collectibles, with family heirlooms and things, and photos, and really putting yourself into the space and whoever else is living there, if you have a partner or something. But it's just about creating those layers of functionality, aesthetic, and then you. And you want it to read like that. You really want the space to be a reflection of yourself. So that's what I think the key elements of good interior design are. There's obviously a lot more, but for me, they are the three that kind of stand out when I think about this question. Okay, this kind of leads into the next question, which is how can I add personality and character to a boring space? So I feel like this really pertains to people like if you're living in a very modern, like white box kind of house or apartment, and maybe it's a rental or maybe it's like not 100% the style of home that you want to live in. And that can be really challenging because for me, for example, if I wanted to move in somewhere, I would definitely want it to be an older style apartment that has a lot of character and nuance to it. And I think it would be a struggle if you were moving into just like a, square set white box because you're kind of having to start from scratch in terms of adding character and personality. However, I won't write it off and say it's impossible because it's definitely not. It is, again, similarly to kind of what I spoke about in the last question, is that you really need to think about, firstly, the functionality of the space, the aesthetic that you want to create, even if it doesn't necessarily align with the apartment that you're kind of in. You can still integrate that, because I think as well, when you have a space that doesn't have much character, it also does give you the freedom to just kind of pick the aesthetic that you want to put in it. For example, if you were living in like an Art Deco apartment, I wouldn't say go and make it really like farmhousey, like it just doesn't align. You kind of do have to keep to some sort of level of alignment with that style. But if you do just have a white box apartment or a white box house, I would just say go for the aesthetic that you want. Adding personality and character is, again, about adding yourself into the space. So your creative vision, pieces that are a real reflection of you, photos of families and friends, things that have stories, personality that reflects your life and your experiences and your memories. And that can be through homewares, through art, through furniture pieces. It's really not limited to anything in particular. It's just about what is going to reflect you the most, and not putting things in the space that are just there for the sake of it. Like, have things in your space that actually mean something to you, and don't just go out and buy things for the sake of it that you don't really have any connection to, things that are just following trends basically. So that's what I'd say for that question. What can I do to stop my house from feeling outdated? I'm just trying to gather my thoughts here. I think the biggest thing that comes to mind when I think about this, of a space feeling outdated, is you have most likely followed trends or like the what's hot right now kind of movement. And therefore, once that trend or fad kind of dies down, your house feels a little bit outdated. It feels like the interiors and the aesthetic are really nodding to a particular era, which can be challenging, especially if you're not necessarily interior design oriented, or it doesn't come very naturally to you. I understand why people get swept up in trends and certain aesthetics because you want guidance, and sometimes the trends are just like that answer that you need in that moment. But I would say if you want to avoid your space feeling like outdated and not really a reflection of yourself, you need to try to stay away from the trends and stick to more classic pieces, or things that are really a true reflection of you and your aesthetic, and again, overall feel and look that you want for your space. When we're following trends, we're really just leaning into someone else's approach and idea of what's cool or what looks good, and ultimately that never really stands the test of time. So I think the biggest piece of advice I can give to avoid your space feeling outdated is to just stay true to your true aesthetic. Going to honestly create the most long-lasting appeal in your space. And I think trends are a waste of money. I mean, sure, there might be some that do stick with us, but I think for the most part they don't, and it just ends up being a bit of a money spending exercise. So I would just stay true to your aesthetic if you want your space to not feel outdated. Avoid following the trends and just lean into the things that you're naturally drawn to. Last question is, what furniture should I purchase when starting out on my interior design journey? Okay, so I think with this question, if you're starting out and you don't have much furniture, or you don't have any at all, let's say that you're moving into your first apartment and you're starting your collection, this can be a very expensive exercise, and I find that it's hard to find pieces like that have a middle ground price range. There's obviously like IKEA and affordable places like that, but there's no real middle ground, at least in Australia, for kind of mid-range pieces. So I think my biggest piece of advice here would be to firstly buy pieces that are functional and things that you're going to really need to be using every day. So whether that's a sofa, a dining table, a bed frame, some sort of chair. I think these things are kind of key to starting out the selection. But in saying that, these are all kind of expensive pieces. So I would definitely encourage you to buy pieces from Facebook Marketplace. However, I will say there is kind of a limit on what I would buy on Facebook Marketplace. Like I wouldn't be buying mattresses or any sort of soft furnishings where like scents and body odor and like skin cells can get into them, like a dirty old couch. I mean, you can get that reupholstered, but like that's still gonna kind of be there. So I would maybe invest in like hard pieces or pieces that can't be infiltrated by bodily, excrement, for lack of a better word, into soft furnishings. So like dining tables, dining chairs, bed frames, of course, but then I would probably invest in getting like a new mattress or eventually a new sofa rather than getting one off Facebook Marketplace, unless you're like certain that it's relatively clean. But I think those kind of bigger ticket items, although they're more expensive, they are the most functional things that you're probably going to need in your space. So I would really opt for trying to get those. And then it can be really tempting, I think, when you move into a space to want to just get everything all at once. And I'm going to say don't. I'm going to say just stop. Just take a second, because that is always becomes like a bit of an impulse exercise, and just take your time. Get the things that you really need and then slowly build the layers of the space. Don't overdo it. Don't go crazy all in one go, because you'll probably regret a lot of the purchases that you make. First things first, get the functional pieces and then slowly build from that. But that is my advice for things to get when you're first starting out. So that's definitely not all the questions, but I think that's enough for today. There was a lot, but these were kind of the ones that were jumping out at me the most. These were the ones that were kind of searched the most on Google. I think hopefully that's answered a lot of them effectively, and I know that a lot of those would relate to a lot of people, myself included. I think it can be daunting when you're starting a space from scratch, as I said, especially if you don't have interior design experience. But remember, it's interchangeable. There's an evolution of yourself that will come along in the future and want to change everything again. So just have fun with it as much as you can. And yeah, interior design shouldn't be a stressful thing. It should just be something that, again, if I have to come back to it, if I have to anchor down on this, it is a reflection of ourselves, and our space should reflect that. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope that was helpful. If you like my videos, please feel free to subscribe to my channel or give this video a thumbs up, because it really supports my channel. And if you have any questions or comments, or if you disagree with anything that I'm saying, feel free to put it in the comments as well, because I'd love to hear your suggestions. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next Sunday.